Agenda 47. Well, I'm going to drop something in the chat, which I think is relevant and goes back to a presentation that was done in March at one of our meetings, where we discussed the essence of Trumpism. And I think it can be characterized by the 5 Ds: disinformation, distortion, dismissal, distraction, and diversion. And what we are seeing is an unprecedented effort on the part of the administration to use the powers of the presidency to divert attention away from what is likely his principal goal, which is to achieve these tax cuts. So consider the following: that just in the course of the past several weeks, we have seen a number of things that I see that thing didn't get in the chat that I dropped. So hold on, please. You guys see that?
Yes.
So when I said diversion, distraction, disinformation, think about since that bill was first started on its journey, what have we seen? We've seen the tariff tax, deportations to El Salvador, the student visa revocations, the Signal Chat controversy, the Wisconsin judicial election, Doge and all of its activities, the what Musk has been doing, the measles epidemic in Texas, the efforts to unravel CDC, the continuation of the war in Gaza, ICE raids, detention camps, arrests, the mobilization of the military, Iran, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. His strategy, his approach has always been to throw stuff up against the wall and distract people from all the spaghetti and ketchup and all the other tomato sauce and stuff that slides down the wall. And so while we're looking over there, he's doing his real agenda over here. And the real agenda is to initiate these tax cuts, which accomplish the main objective of his administration, which is to reduce revenue for the federal government, to do away with the idea that government exists to enhance the quality of life for everyone, but particularly the middle and lower income earners in our society, and use the resources that come from reductions in the cost of government that goes to serve working class and lower income earners to benefit upper income earners. And we see that when one conducts any sort of analysis associated with the bill. Now, there are several other things that have occurred. We see that there are executive actions that are perceived by some as threats to the very rule of law in an effort to pursue this unprecedented expansion of executive power. We've seen him target law firms, conduct mass pardons for people that beat up on police, while mobilizing the military to crack down on protests against his deportation efforts. We've even seen attempts to unilaterally revise the Constitution, in this case, to revoke birthright citizenship. We've seen him go around Congress by attempting to dissolve federal agencies that Congress has authorized, to fire civil servants for positions that Congress has funded. We've seen him use the bully pulpit in an effort to try to intimidate individuals based on their political beliefs. And I think the bottom line is an effort that is first and foremost designed to achieve what they believe is, I think the legal theory is, the unitary executive power, where the president is the chief executive of the government, the executive branch, and as such, all agencies and departments are subordinate to his whim. And because he stands on the powers of the policing authority of the government, is able to determine what he's going to implement and what he's not going to implement, and then dare the courts or anyone else to try to stop him. So that's the context for understanding what is going on at the federal level with regard to his big, beautiful bill. Are there any questions before I proceed? Any comments?
Mm.
So what I'm going to do now is go to the Center for Budget and Policy Priorities, which is a federal think tank, or think tank, I should say, that's based in DC. And I've used this resource to understand what has been happening. And so this statement was very, very useful to understand some of the things that are included in the Senate bill that was just adopted. This is dated July the 1st. Now, I'm going to put the link to this document in the chat momentarily, but we shouldn't be afraid to explore and investigate what is happening on our own. We shouldn't rely on Vincent to identify information that is so readily available to anyone who does an internet search. And I think if you put in different questions or different search parameters, you'll come up with all kinds of information. For example, you could say American Hospital Association Senate Reconciliation Bill. And what you will find is a statement made by the American Hospital Association about their concerns associated with the bill, which provides a very comprehensive assessment of the impact they perceive will occur as a consequence of the Medicaid cuts on their own survival as hospitals, and more significantly, the impact it may have on everyone else. Because they make the observation in that document that if you remove people from any form of insurance coverage, but particularly public insurance coverage, even though it doesn't pay the total cost of the services that folks receive in the hospital setting, if people do not have coverage, they present at the emergency room, which is phenomenally more expensive to provide treatment. And so in order for the hospitals to make up the cost of treatment for folks who are uncovered, they are going to increase insurance premiums for the people who are covered. So those of us who are fortunate enough to have private pay health insurance may think that Medicaid cuts don't impact us. We don't have anything to worry about. Or because no members of our family are receiving Medicaid, we have nothing to worry about. That is not true. Somebody is going to have to make up for the gaps in coverage and financing for people who present with medical maladies at hospitals that they can't pay for.
Hmm.
And the way it has been done historically is to increase the private pay insurance premiums. If MRT is there, he might want to verify that based on his experience in the legislature, because as a member of the Health Committee, these were issues that were frequently brought to the committee's attention.
So I think it's true to say that there is a huge point of debate as is being suggested right now in terms of Vincent's remarks and presentation. But the shorthanded way of addressing this is one of the most significant and or divisive issues in the legislature is around health policy. And the debate with the Assembly and the Senate revolved significantly around single payer at one point, and is not completely divorced from this subject matter, although it's a different point of emphasis. These are highly, highly contentious issues, but I would want to say that the following. What happens in California is defining. We had legislation teed up that predated Obamacare by a good 5+ years. And if in fact that had been adopted, the rough road that Obamacare had would have been in part made more smooth, because we would have gotten some of the flaws, the kinks, the bugs out. I realize that this is a parenthetical issue, but I want to just lean into the complexity of health policy as it attaches itself to the state budget, and beyond that, how it speaks more fundamentally to the quality of life for people of the county of Los Angeles, the state of California, the nation itself. I just will conclude, Vincent, by making the point that not a small issue by any stretch of the imagination is the claim of some who argue that the status quo in terms of healthcare delivery and the like is just fine. Those who suffer ought to continue to suffer, and those who do well, fine, they ought to be doing well. It's the survival of the fittest mentality. I just simply want to say to you that cuts against the very notion, in my mind at least, that healthcare is a right, not a privilege in a Western democracy in particular. But we have to have the ability to operationalize that. And it's not simply a matter of a slogan. It's a matter of what you do with Medicare, how it goes to improving people's lives. And understand that the public sector feeds and nourishes, undergirds private sector healthcare delivery in a significant way. Look more locally at the county of Los Angeles. If it were not for the 5 health campuses in the county of Los Angeles, I will say to you without fear of contradiction, St. John's, Cedars, City of Hope, name them Kaiser, would have a much tougher set of circumstances with which to deal in terms of delivery of services for the elderly, for those who are infirmed, and those who have a number of other problems. Larger answer to the question, but in terms of the legislative issues in play, Vincent, I think I'll settle with that as a response.
Thank you. So as you can see, this is a very comprehensive analysis of at least the healthcare impacts of the bill. It makes observations such as the one that I have highlighted on the screen right now, that even in the effort by Senate Republicans to address the issue of funding of rural hospitals will fall terribly short. The other point to be made is that the approach that they are taking with regard to the Medicaid cuts is to address this myth of fraud, waste, and abuse with their real effort, which is to create so much red tape seeking to apply for Medicaid assistance that people just drop out and don't.
Yep.
And I know that when I worked in the Davis administration, we experienced a little of this. It was shortly after, I believe, the Children's Health Insurance Program was enacted. And I may have this wrong factually, but I'm pretty sure it's close to being accurate. The effort by his predecessor to implement the legislation, his predecessor, of course, being Pete Wilson, resulted in a 54-page application that the Davis administration was able to reduce to 4 pages. Now, if you think of it in terms of time on task, and a person spends a minute on each page, you've effectively reduced a 54-minute application to 4 minutes. And as a consequence, the administration saw a significant increase in the number of children who were covered because their parents didn't face onerous tasks associated with the application process. And so what the Republicans anticipate when they say that, when you hear the idea that 10 or 12 million people will be kicked off of Medicaid, part of it is based on just burdening folks with applications that are require so much time, effort, and energy that folks decide they won't apply at all and won't be covered at all unless there's an emergency, in which case they go to the emergency room. So they'll let an illness go by in hopes that a family remedy or chicken soup will address the issue, only to find that after delaying care, the problem becomes that much worse and that much more costly to address. Yes, Rochelle, you have a question?
Hi, good evening. Yes, I was wanting to ask a question in regards to the cuts. You mentioned it was for waste and abuse. So in my community, you know, like the infant mortality rate, or the mother's mortality rate when delivering a baby is very high among other people. So when you mention the cuts, that's going to go to the staffs that's working at these places, because that's where I'm confused on where the cuts are coming from. You saying it's going to be cuts, or is it going to be cuts from the people who are using the emergency room as the doctor? That's where I was confused on where the cuts were going to take place.
There will be reductions in the coverage of people who are currently eligible to receive or who are covered by Medicaid. And as a result, there will be fewer of them showing up to receive preventive health care. And they will be waiting to receive their care until they can barely walk. And then they'll go into the emergency room to receive that care, which will increase the burden on emergency room staffs and on whoever winds up paying for their coverage, whether it is charitable care from donors at hospitals, or whether it is absorbed by the hospital's revenue streams from other sources, or whether it's going to be paid for by taxpayers who pay for the cost of emergency care that's uncompensated. Does that answer your question?
Yes, I got it. So it's going to go the cuts are going to go to those who apply for the Medicaid.
Yeah, they will be throwing people off the rolls by making it too difficult for them to stay on the rolls through application processes. And there's a feature that relates to a work requirement, even though I think 70% of current Medicaid recipients or beneficiaries are already working. And another, I don't know, I think it's 15 to 20% are either in school or have small children that they have to look out for and are unable to access childcare.
Okay, got it. And it doesn't matter about your citizenship status. This is for everybody, right?
Well, currently, at least at the federal level, non-citizens are not eligible for Medicaid. States can pick up the cost, but currently at the federal level, we're talking about the federal budget, non-citizens, or I should say undocumented, are unable to access Medicaid. There may be some categories of non-citizens who are here legally who do qualify, but the number there is not very large. Stop to consider that the House bill proposed an $800 billion cut in Medicaid. The Senate version is proposing a $1.1 trillion. So they increased the cuts by $300 million. So it got worse in the Senate.
Wow, yes, that's really bad. And then in the emergency room, people are using right now, people who don't have Medicaid. The cuts haven't even happened yet, but there are people who are using that emergency room as their doctor right now. That's why it's so crowded. So yeah, it's going to be really bad.
Right.
Oh, Vincent, and one of the issues in terms of the state budget is, in fact, the cuts that will affect a wide swath of individuals, documented, undocumented, etc. And that's where one of the most contentious fights has taken place with Governor Newsom. So at a future meeting, a drill down on that might be in order, but there will be definite cuts, and the clinic associations, the federally qualified clinics in particular, have raised substantial concerns in this regard. So in a future meeting, it may be useful to have a presenter to raise that point.
Yeah, it makes a whole lot of sense. We should probably do that for both the state as well as the county, because the county will be impacted.
No question. I mean, the county is positioning itself for substantial cuts at not only the clinics in the county that are publicly operated, the ambulatory care centers, the mental health clinics, the public health clinics, all slated for a challenging time. And so this is a huge issue. I would say to you that the safety net that Obamacare or the ACA provided in many respects, and that which Biden came to reinforce, will have a material impact in terms of the care that the families in LA County will benefit from at those 5 medical campuses. But it will be a very challenging moment, and the county health leaders are bracing themselves accordingly.
Let me conclude this portion of the conversation by simply saying that this chart is from a link that's embedded in the article that I was sharing with you earlier. And it gives you a sense of the scale, that is the number of people who are at risk of losing coverage. And I've identified the California number, which is highlighted, and that 2,321 and that 3,530 is actually in thousands of people. So it means 3,530,000.
Wow.
And then it says over here on the far right, where didn't work in the last year and don't qualify for an exemption, 15%. Which suggests that 85% of the recipients, the beneficiaries, worked. So this isn't a handout as much as it is a hand up for people who simply do not earn enough at the jobs where they work to obtain or qualify for private insurance. I don't think I need to repeat myself. But what is fascinating, if you look at this same chart, is what folks propose to do in the red states of senators who voted for this stuff. Think about it. Alaska, Arkansas, Idaho, Indiana, Kentucky, Louisiana. The speaker is from Louisiana. This is what he's proposing to do to his own constituents. 234,000 of them, or 351,000. So I think the point is made. So now the question is, what are we going to do about it? Or what can be done about it? And I would simply suggest a couple of things. First, as is part of the legislative process, the bill originated in the House as H.R. 1. It went to the Senate, where it was amended. Under the rules of legislation, the identical bill has to be adopted. So it now goes back to the House, where votes will be taken to concur with the amendments. If a single word is changed in the Senate version of the measure that went to the House by the House, it still has to go back to the Senate so that the Senate can adopt that single word change. So there is still a chance that the measure can be defeated. But that only happens if there is sufficient public pressure that can be brought to bear on folks who may have reservations about doing to their constituents what clearly senators were unafraid to do. So that means that if we have a perspective on what is being planned, then we need to articulate that to our representatives in the U.S. House of Representatives. In South Los Angeles, the three representatives are Sidney Kamlager Dove, Nanette Barragan, and Maxine Waters. And I'm going to ask Courtney if she can, before the conclusion of our meeting in a half an hour, to drop the link in the chat where you can look up in whose district you reside. And I would encourage you to first inform yourselves about what the bill does and doesn't do, because there may be some things in there that you like. For example, this bill proposes that there be no tax on tips or tax on overtime. It proposes an increase in the state and local tax exemption that for homeowners in California can be very, very meaningful when they apply for, submit their tax returns. So that information can be found if people have subscriptions to the New York Times. There is a very detailed, almost item by item discussion of the things that are in there and what their aggregated costs are. There are also articles that suggest what the benefits may be, and I use that term loosely and in quotation marks, for middle and lower income earners. But rest assured, every analysis that I have seen indicates that the overwhelming bulk of the resources from this tax reconciliation bill flow to the upper 10%, sometimes by a magnitude of 6 or 7 times what the lower 10% of income earners will receive. And in fact, lower income earners will suffer a net loss in resources by virtue of the loss of their health insurance benefits. So the point is that inform yourselves about what the bill says, what it does, and let your perspective guide you in a communication that you should have with your member of the House of Representatives, so that they know what you are thinking about, how you feel about things. Now, chances are they already align with your perspective. If they do not, then it's important for you to let them know. But it's also important for them to see that their constituents are concerned enough to pick up the telephone and call their office and say, I oppose or support H.R. 1, and then ask how that member is going to vote, and then leave your address and ask for them to send you a letter to that effect, so that you have the documentation that you need to be able to hold them accountable the next time they come looking for your vote in just a year and a half or so. Are there any questions?
Yes, I have a question in regards. I'm gonna call my congressperson and ask to speak with them, and if they're not available, I'm gonna let them know if I oppose it or if I uh in
Support.
support. And then you mentioned to ask for a letter. Can you speak on that? A letter from who?
Yeah. Just from the member of Congress, letting you know how they voted
Hmm.
after the
Thank
vote.
you. Thank
Well,
you.
I'd like to know how you voted. Here's my address.
I would like to make a comment about the healthcare cuts.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I worked in healthcare for godly, probably close to 40 years at the different hospitals and healthcare systems. And I can tell you from all of the times that I worked in the healthcare arena, the white population is the majority of people that are on the Medicaid programs across the nation. But due to the media and some of these politicians, they want to always come out and say that it's the black and brown people that are the ones that are on the Medicaid programs, which is not true, and it hasn't been true historically. And so, and another thing also with the healthcare cuts, it's going to affect a lot of the rural hospitals that are rural hospitals. And in most of these rural hospitals that is going to affect, there are in these red states. And so and we already have a shortage because I used to recruit for professionals, doctors, and RNs and nurses to take contracts to work in these rural hospitals because it has always been a problem to place medical professionals in these rural places because they're so remote. And so with these healthcare cuts, it's it's really the MAGA or these Trumpers, they're going to realize that these cuts are going to affect them way more harsher and deeper than, say, the rest of us. So, as I'm stating, with the rural hospitals, they're not going to have access to the rural hospitals, which have been historically understaffed for decades now, that I personally know about because I work in this arena. And and with the cuts with the Medicaid, it's going to affect a lot of people. It's going to be a domino effect where it's going to cost people jobs. It's not going to be very sustainable for these hospitals to keep their emergency rooms open. And because when you have these uninsured people and they show up in the emergency room, according to the guidelines and the current regulations, you can't refuse care in an emergency room situation. So it's going to be a domino effect where we might, I'm pretty sure with these cuts, some of these hospital emergency rooms are going to shut down. So we're going to have less access to emergency rooms because they're not going to be able to sustain people that don't have some type of health care insurance. So I just wanted to mention that as a comment. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Absolutely. Well, thank you, Donna. That's another reason why you need to come to the next meeting. We can utilize that expertise and that sort of firsthand knowledge. In fact, that's the sort of information that assists legislators and their staffs in understanding the source of your support or opposition, your own personal story.
Yes. Thank you.
So we do appreciate that. Are there any other questions or comments before we move the agenda along? Is there anything else that folks can think of that could be done to express your perspective on what has happened and what is happening. Okay. I wanted to make an observation about another sort of budget related matter. As many people know, June 30th is the end of the fiscal year for the state of California and for a number of other governmental agencies. I expect that at our next meeting, we may have an opportunity to talk about both the state and the county budgets on matters that are of interest to us, particularly the impact that they will have on implementation of Measure G and how the election of a chief executive officer might play in discussions about the allocation of resources associated with the budget. One of the things that happened in this year's budget is that Governor Newsom used the threat of not signing the budget that was enacted by the legislature if they were unwilling to reform the California Environmental Quality Act, which many people know as CEQA. CEQA has been characterized by some as a burdensome regulatory hurdle to the production of housing in the state of California and in the ability of the state to promote economic development. And so the legislation that was enacted makes some fairly significant changes to CEQA when it comes to the approval and permitting process of housing and other projects, including high-speed rail and advanced manufacturing. So it's worth us knowing about what happened, about that particular effort, and more significantly, the role the governor played in getting the legislature to bend to his will. To some, it seemed a little Trumpy. To others, it reflected finally some leadership aimed at addressing this matter of regulatory approval that opponents of certain types of housing have used in order to minimize housing of the type that they dislike in their neighborhoods. I don't know if anybody wants to say anything about that or the what they know about the state budget, but this would be an appropriate time if we could take a couple of minutes if folks have any comments or observations. Okay. Hearing none, then I want to call your attention to the links that I've been putting into the chat. These are resources that I have looked up over the past several days that help to provide additional information about the issues that we have discussed earlier in this meeting, I want to encourage everyone to make copies of what's in the chat and to look up the information that that you see, as well as to go and find your own. I think that we ought to use these meetings as a forum for sharing precisely this type of information. I am going to take the liberty before Courtney cues up the video on Juneteenth that we want to share to show you the letter from the Lawyers Committee on Civil Rights Under Law that was transmitted in connection to what, or I should say the statement that was issued in connection to what happened with the big, beautiful bill adopted by the Senate. The reason I do that is because the keynote speaker of our Juneteenth plenary session was none other than the president and CEO of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law, Ms. Maya Wiley. And I found the statement earlier to be particularly poignant in light of what she had to say during her comments about resilience, a definition of which was placed earlier in the chat for everyone's edification. But note in that second paragraph that she understands that folks who have been historically marginalized in our society are being disproportionately impacted in order to pay for these huge tax cuts. She also notes, as we've said before during these conversations, that this tax bill will deepen the racial wealth gap in absolute terms, as well as in relative terms, and by virtue of the inaccessibility to governmental resources that will occur as a result of either their elimination or barriers to access. So with that said, unless there are any questions, you know, I went through all of that conversation. I thought that I was sharing. I apologize. With that said, if there are any final comments, then I'd like to ask Courtney to run the video. Okay, Courtney?
I think she's having technical difficulties.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Then let me try to let me try to locate it. Hold on just a second, please. It's going to take me a minute to find it. I know I have it in an email from earlier today.
Vincent, I was trying to get the link for the budget 2025. This is Arna, 2526 Budget Act to put into the chat. So if people really want to do a deeper dive on the California budget, they could actually see line by line things that were cut and things that were kept.
Great. So Are you having any success?
May I ask a
Yeah.
question while we're waiting? Do we have
Yes.
time for a question right now?
Yes.
This question isn't actually what you've been talking about, but it's something that is really it really is boggling to me. Very recently, I've had the opportunity to speak with several extremely, let me just say, well-off and well-positioned immigrants who did it legally. And what they have pointed out when I have very gently asked them why they are so big on this whole Trumpism thing, they have said it's because we have so many people in the country that it's running down our budget. We are losing, the dollar is doing so poorly, and in a certain amount of years, we will lose all these services anyway because the dollar will have fallen so much. Is this a diversion that somehow everybody on that is wealthy believes? In other words, you probably know statistically how many people who are immigrants, especially from Central and South America, voted for Trump and still believe in him, even though, of course, what you're talking about is terrible and many people are now finding out about it. But is there any truth that you see that this is why it's happening? Or is that totally, you think, a diversion to get the money, not lowering anything, but just to get it to the wealthiest people? That's my question.
Does anybody want to reply before I venture an effort?
Yeah, I admonish you, Vincent, to show restraint in response to Louise's provocative questions. This is the best.
To bring Donald Trump back from his rambling.
All right, you guys.
Other incomprehensible that he was making.
Oh, we're gonna get the video. Is it coming?
We
up?
are, yes.
Right.
But here's the thing about resilience, because then you could say, well, what does that have to do with resilience today besides don't leave your power on the table? And this is why I go back to remembering. Remembering. Because it's not just remembering the past, it's not only remembering the past. It is remembering what inspires us. It is remembering why we do what we do. It's why we have to struggle in the face of cruelty, of corruption, chaos. Look, this country is at a crossroads. It's a crossroads we as Black people have known in the past. It's now a crossroads the entire country knows. But this is the thing about chaos and cruelty and corruption, is that Juneteenth reminds us that we are our future. We can author it, we can lead it, we are powerful, and that is how we get through it.
No sound.
Well, let me say that our Juneteenth celebration was an effort to apply the mission of the Empowerment Congress, which is to educate, engage, and empower, to the substance of the holiday and what it means. The theme was educate, engage, empower, resilience in the face of chaos. And the program consisted of two components, two segments. One was a general plenary session in which we heard from our keynote speaker, Maya Wiley, who discussed the theme. And then it was followed by an hour-long dialogue in which the people seated around those round tables were able to discuss the meaning of Juneteenth to them and what resilience looks like after first expressing how they felt about what was going on in Los Angeles over the past several weeks. The Master of Ceremonies was Tavis Smiley, and the event was punctuated by a couple of educational videos and two cultural performances, one an African drumming group associated with the Rhythm Arts Alliance, and a second by a group of high schoolers who did a performance of some Shakespeare that was appropriate to the occasion. Following that plenary session, we then recessed to the courtyard area of the venue, where we were entertained by a band called Upward Mobility. And I see Harry McElroy on the call. Harry is a co-chair of the Empowerment Congress, but also the bass player, I believe, for Upward Mobility, the group that performed. It was emceed by Paige Bryan, a local comedian. And then it also featured a Freedom Song sing-along led by Harry's group and a demonstration of yoga. So after we finished our feast, which consisted of, among other things, macaroni and cheese, fried catfish, chicken on skewers, grilled vegetables, fresh fruit, and dessert. It was quite the occasion. We had a little over 200 people who were able to attend, and we think that it was a program and activity that met the moment. Does anybody who was there want to make another comment or observation?
Oh, just an historical interjection that the group that you referred to as Upward Mobility is affectionately known as the Empowerment Congress House Band.
We've been around, formerly the 8th District Band.
Yeah, that's true. 30 years.
I was just going to add that I've been to many of several of these Juneteenth events, but this one I thought the energy level was surpassed the others. There was something about it that it was just really charged. I thought both the plenary and the celebration.
All right.
I don't know that there were very many Juneteenth events that we could point to throughout LA County. I know this wasn't the only one, but I don't know that I can point to very many. Maybe others can share if they
Raising Canes, they had something on June 19th at the Social Security, didn't they? Raising their canes.
Oh, that's right.
That's
we
right.
had
Oh, Crenshaw, yeah, don't forget about the Crenshaw community. Yeah, and then they brung it on down to Lamert Park, and we fellowship there.
Uh-huh. Good, good.
yeah.
Worth noting. Worth noting.
Cardio Soul had a line dancing event in honor of Juneteenth. And
What was
that was Juneteenth at the St. Andrews Park
Uh-huh.
Recreation Center.
So you had boots on the ground, huh?
Absolutely.
That's what we're talking about.
We had
Just-
our boots on the ground too now.
Yeah, we saw it. Where the fans at? Yeah. So we had. It's good to keep track of the celebration of culture as we think of Los Angeles as being a city of tremendous diversity. And it's through culture that we learn from each other and learn about each other. And somehow I have a very strong feeling that makes for a stronger fabric of understanding. This Juneteenth sought to lean into resilience, but it also leaned into the notion of dialogue, which assumes differences of opinions. Otherwise, you would just simply have a monologue, right? But I think culture is a prism of consequence as relates to how we communicate our desire to explore differences and commonality.
Yep. Well, before we conclude, unless anyone else has anything to say.
Well, I went to a Juneteenth celebration at the California Yacht Club.
All right.
At the marina, and there's a Black woman. Her name is Marie Rogers, and she is the first Black Commodore to head up a race. They call it a Transpac race. But anyway, there's a documentary coming out about her whole her whole experience with sailing. And so this was a jazz. It was we had jazz players and also a Southern food that was served.
Okay.
So everybody try to be on the lookout for Marie Rogers. There's going to be a documentary that they just finished up on her life in the sailing arena.
Good to know.
Right.
Thank you.
Rochelle, did you have another question or comment?
Yeah, I did have a question. For Juneteenth down in Lamert Park, we galvanizing and organizing for this statewide direct primary election coming up June 2nd, 2026. And I know you mentioned that y'all been around for 30 years. How do y'all get y'all people up on in the seats? Like, do y'all send them to political education classes, or how do y'all do it? Or are y'all strictly just for the Democrats? Are y'all like an independent, like I'm from the community and I would like to run for one of these seats. We're gonna have federal, state, that's our county that's gonna come up. And all of us inside of this meeting right here, we all love our community. That's Mark Ridley Thomas. He said that's a commonality that we have. We love our community. So I was wanting to know, how can I get people, because I don't want to send nobody over here to y'all and y'all can't educate them, for political, for independent. It can't just be, Republican or Democrat. It got to be, both ways. So I was wanting to know, how do y'all educate your people to get in one of these seats so that I can get some people over to y'all? Because it was a lot of young people out there that were energetic about this statewide election, but I don't have the political knowledge, and y'all been here for 30 years. And I just want to leave it there. If somebody can reach out to me, Mr. Vincent, I would appreciate it. Peace and love.
Will do, Rochelle.
Just quickly, this is a nonpartisan engagement. We educate, engage and empower from a vantage point of nonpartisan efforts. It is fair to say that a number of elected officials have come by and been involved with the Empowerment Congress. Three off the top, Mayor Karen Bass, Councilmember President Marquise Harris Dawson, as well as Congresswoman Sidney Kamlager Dove. There might be others that we could mention, but the Empowerment Congress has staked out investing in leadership, but also essentially trying to define in the most authentic way possible the issue of participatory democracy. And so our effort is not to produce leaders who are in public office, but essentially to cultivate an informed citizenry or an educated electorate. Let me put it in these terms, that education is a fundament of democracy. You cannot have a democratic society that works with people who are uninformed, unintelligent, and or uneducated. That's why education is so critically important to the proposition of helping to create a strong democratic process. Thinking people make the difference. And that's essentially, I believe, what we've sought to do tonight. And Vincent has done, again, a stellar job in leading the effort. And we invite you to join us at our next meeting. And we have several that posted on the website, empowermentcongress.org. So tap in. I think you'll find it worth your time. Shout out to Marie.
Thank you.
Michelle Reed, Riri in the house. SCIU 2050. Who got the power?
And I'll be sending those.
We got the power.
I know that's right. And I'm going to be sending them young,
Ain't no
energetic
power
people.
like the power of the people.
Amen. And I'm going to send them
Don't
3
stop.
young, energetic people that I have who said that they would like to run.
Amen.
I'm going to be sending them y'all way. So they'll
That
be
part.
in these. They'll be at these next meetings, and we'll be getting them politically engaged. And why I mentioned as far as all sides is because today we had a hearing for Senate Bill 437 and Senate Bill 518. You didn't mention that, but we were there. That because that's going to be us right there. We're going to benefit from those agencies. And you didn't mention it. So those young people reached out to me today and asked, hey, I want to be in one of those seats. I don't have the education, but I'm here today to, to let them, to ask a question. And you said you available to educate. So I'm going to invite them on over. I got 3 energetic people, and peace and blessings to y'all.
Excellent.
Thanks.
Maya says hello to Uncle Mark.
Before we conclude, let me just point this New York Times article, this chart out that identifies the impact of that bill. The orange or red signifies what the costs are over 10 years. And the green lines represent the savings as a result of cuts that are being made by this bill. That's a New York Times article from today, and I'm going to put that in the chat so that if you wish to avail yourselves of it, you can. So if that is, I think that pretty much.
Brother Vince,
Yes.
may I chime in because I just got back from DC
Yes,
about
ma'am.
the Medicaid because what they voted on today, but in the Senate and everything. And we, we went hard and everything from all of different parts of the United States of SEIU. We did a, peaceful demonstration, like a billboard type of way, with our shirts and visual of like the how Medicaid would kill us and everything. We did lobby visits to all of those Republicans and sharing and leaving leaflets, even though none of them want to come out and say nothing face to face. But we let them know we're not going nowhere. We're there for all, and was diversity inclusion for all. And we're not stopping. We're going to continue, excuse the way I'm going to say it, stand 10 toes down. We're not allowing them to go back because they always want to have their foot on our neck, but we're going to continue thriving. We will rise.
There we go.
Period.
Right.
Thank you.
I think they call that the benediction.
Yes. All right. So we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
Good
See
evening,
ya.
everyone.
Good job. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Amen.